Tony Katz.
It's Kendall and Casey.
The Amber and Nigel show.
All right, well, when does your show start? Do we know? I feel like I've been promoting this for 9 years now.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
My, what a shame. What a shame. The amazing interview that we were promised, Kamala Harris, bold, brave, exciting journey, unburdened by what has been, aired on CNN, not live last night, although they did try to claim it was live in the chyron, which is the fancy word for the line of text on the bar at the bottom of the screen. Above the chyron, the CNN logo, they actually had the word live above the interview, which is not true. It was pre-taped. And while there were rumors it was only 18 minutes long, it ended up being a whopping 27 minutes long. And actually, Kamala Harris was only actually answering questions for about 16 minutes of that, and only about serious issues for about 13 or 14. She did spend a considerable amount of time talking about making bacon and pancakes with family members, you know, stuff that's extremely important and relevant to the presidency of the United States. And she did bring her emotional support governor, Tim Walz from Minnesota there, who sat there really awkwardly. And as you'll see in a second, the entire interview just looked really off. It was very weird. Dana Bash, who's a big, Biden, Obama, Harris fan, she was the one interviewing them, and she asked some okay questions and then didn't follow up on anything. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. The shot itself was very weird because it was in this diner. Now, normally a diner would actually be filled with people, and the Harris campaign wanted to actually fill it with people, but Harris campaign had already been caught once kicking people out of a diner to fill it with like artificial extras so they could film Kamala walking around and talking to paid-for staffers. So didn't actually do that. So they're just sitting at this like weird dark diner table, and ended up answering a few questions. And well, the worst part about this entire interview for Democrats, for Republicans, for pretty much everyone in the entire country who's watching is that she really didn't answer any questions at all. She didn't. She basically filibustered the entire interview, saying pretty much nothing at all. It was like an education, professional development. If you've ever worked in a public school, a professional development, you bring in somebody who says a bunch of really big fancy words for like a half an hour to an hour, if you're really unlucky, and it says nothing at all. Basically, they say 25 pages worth of stuff, and they end up communicating about half a paragraph worth of stuff worth saying. In the corporate world, you'd say that is a meeting that could have been an email. In this particular instance, that's what this interview was. Now, she didn't just say nothing at all. She didn't just pontificate on useless garbage. She did lie her pants off, which was traumatizing for absolutely every single one of us. And it started by her getting accidentally backed into a corner on whether or not she would ban fracking. So in 2019, she said she would ban fracking. Then her campaign for presidency here in 2024 now said she's not actually going to ban fracking, the process of extracting oil and natural gas, basically from sedimentary rock deposits, often in mountainous parts of the United States. So here is her backing herself into a very weird corner, saying that she isn't banning fracking. She super duper promises.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I believe, in a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
By the way, there is no clip from 2020 where she actually goes back and stops supporting the ban of fracking. Like, that clip doesn't even exist. I mean, like a figment of the imagination. I've gone back. I looked through the Mike Pence debate, which maybe she's referencing. She dropped out of the race to run for president, by the way, in 2019. She didn't even make it to 2020. So whatever mystical clip she's talking about, I have actually scoured all of the footage I can find. She's never once gone back on it. But anyway, moving slightly aside, she's simultaneously trying to say that she's for banning, or she's not for banning fracking, while saying that climate crisis is real and we need to enact laws that ban things in order to be accountable for the climate. So here's like the very weird double back in the exact same interview.
Generally speaking, how should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy, is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it
So Dana tries to help her
because
out
you're
of
running
this.
for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time.
So, again, this would be where the Green New Deal brought forth the electric vehicle mandate. All electric cars by 2030. Now she says she no longer supports that. This would be banning fracking because hyper-environmentalists are so obsessed with the climate change narrative that they want to ban fracking and oil drilling of any kind, which is where Kamala got the ban fracking thing. It's not like a safety issue. It's not like OSHA's really against fracking. No. So she's trying to have it both ways, and it's just not working. And the reason that it's not going to work for her is because Trump knows exactly what to tell Pennsylvania voters in this particular case. Here's Trump going on the offensive on this today.
When we win on day one, I will tell Pennsylvania to drill, baby, drill. We're going to drill, baby, drill.
That's the kind of stuff that'll actually pull through with the 90s Labor Democrat base, the manufacturing base in Pennsylvania. So then Kamala's asked what she's going to do on day one. And this question matters for three very specific reasons. Because once you are in the White House, once you have been sworn in, this is usually when the president gets to work. You need to outline what it is that you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and then why. Why should we elect you to do these things? Kamala amazingly does none of those things at all and basically just gives us some kind of weird unicorn wish list of things that I guess Superwoman could accomplish.
If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward.
So she goes on like that for another couple of minutes. And you may notice she said the middle class. She said dreams of the Americans and going forward. Well, she's the vice president, so going forward from what? She doesn't actually outline a plan. Nothing. No day one proposals, much less how you're going to do them. Now, she has said in her campaign rallies that she wants to help the middle class and expand housing and do something with the child tax credit. She never says how she wants to do that. Because you can't just get into the president's office and be like Michael Scott declaring bankruptcy. I declare housing! You can't do that. Not a thing that exists. I'm sorry. You can write as many executive orders as you like, but as Biden is learning from the Supreme Court right now, you can't just massively throw the entire United States budget at anything you want. The power of purse resides with Congress. She's never once mentioned Congress. And then there's Tim Walz. Good old Timmy. So Tim Walz finally did get pushed back by Dana Bash on lying about his service record, lying about where he served, what he did when he served, as well as the rank he retired from. And he blamed this on bad grammar. Okay, he blamed it. I have bad grammar sometimes. And Dana Bash tries to help him out. Did you misspeak? Because that would be the easy way to say, look, you know what? You talk to so many people during the day. Sometimes you say something, it's the wrong thing. Happens. I'm sorry that I said it. I wasn't trying to, very easy to get out of. Instead, he just says, I have bad grammar. Great. Super special. By the way, he has, of course, been caught in yet more lies because this man is just struggling to beat the band. So his political origin story, basically he's described as the moment in 2004 that inspired him to run in public office. He said that Walz and two of his students were denied the entry to a George Bush rally because they saw a John Kerry bumper sticker on his car. Ooh. Well, it turns out that was a lie. The records show that Walz was let inside and the two people with him were not his students. So, big fat phony lie. What a big shocker right there. The media has tried very hard to give Kamala credit by the way, for last night, but even they have to admit that this was pretty much an abysmal failure as far as what they wanted to move the campaign forward.
Now, you might not like the way she answered him, but she answered him as a capable, qualified leader. And I do think she moved the ball forward a little bit. You know, maybe she didn't score a touchdown tonight.
Oh, moving the ball forward a little bit. Yes, gotcha. Well, all she has left is the presidential debate, and then it's over. You don't see anyone out there, by the way, in the media that's clamoring for her to do more interviews, do you? Have you found one today? Anyone on the left that says she needs to do way more of these? No, because she got royally wrecked with a friendly interviewer. So we're going to talk a little bit about what Kamala's hoping for up next here with Elise McCue. Stick around. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal and 93 WIBC.
Indianapolis. Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal. I'm Elise McCue, and today we're going to be talking about mansplaining. So, to womansplain for you, mansplaining
is the amazing art of, as a man, cutting off a woman and telling her how something really works. And that's the best part about modern politics today, because instead of arguing about ideas or policies or where you want the country to go or, what it's going to mean for everyday Americans, instead, you whine about guys in really dapper-looking blazers cutting you off very rudely. Elise, thanks for joining us on this segment for mansplaining.
Thank you so much, Tony.
So let's dig right in. You've seen the Kamala Harris-Mike Pence debate in which she tried to, shoehorn her way into getting cut off by the vice president?
Yeah, it was embarrassing, to say the least.
Let's take a look at it real quick.
He said because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Well, let's get
but Susan, this is important. I want to add, Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
Yeah, you can have 15 more seconds, and then we'll give the Vice President a chance to respond.
So I want to ask the American people, how calm were you when you were panicked about where you're going to get your next roll of toilet paper?
So that's the first time that she tried that. And she tried it again because Pence really didn't cut her off, but she really wanted to sound kind of like the school teacher. I'm talking, Michael. Here it is again.
Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
He said he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well, wait.
I'm speaking.
It'd be important if you said the truth.
Oh my gosh.
Why? It's
like you said with the school teacher. I'll wait.
Okay, so
no one likes that.
We talk about this in the divide between, again, the last of the millennials and the beginning of Gen Z. That's kind of where you and I find the divide here. Do you find that, at least with ladies going into Generation Z, that this is kind of getting old? Or is this something that, because with millennial ladies, this is still a really big deal, cutting off guys and going, I'm speaking to power, so can you stop it? Does Gen Z still feel the same way, or is this, hopefully, are we coming out of this mess? I
definitely think Gen Z still feels it, but not as earnestly as millennials do, I would say. I think I found myself personally and some of my female friends, if there is an instance where we get mansplained to, at least my first reaction isn't to go, oh, it's because I'm a woman. I index through the 5 to 10 things I actually probably didn't do or say correctly, because I'm not a goddess. I'm not, much to everybody else's disbelief, I'm not a goddess, and I'm not I'm not perfect, believe it or not. So there are so many things it could be that aren't just I'm a woman and someone wanted to cut me off or explain something to me just because of that.
I just try to think that it's really more cutting somebody off. And in a debate, this is a totally different thing. It really is. Obviously, there's a little bit of back and forth that's expected during a debate, but it's rude to interrupt people, obviously. And the idea that every kind of interrupting has to be white-splaining or mansplaining, or if you hear the term manterrupting, that's the new extra term. So there's mansplaining, there's manterrupting. Are we just adding man to words now? Because a little anti-feminism, I guess I can get behind this. Are there any others that I'm missing?
I'm sure there is an entire dictionary of words that are like that, but let me Gen Z-splain something to you.
Yeah, lay it down.
Adding man in front of something to be offended by it is quote-unquote chuggy, which is, it's so millennial, it hurts a little bit.
Is that the new cringy?
Well, actually, I feel like chuggy is a little bit... it's not really in style anymore to say, but that's usually what people say to describe something that is so millennial that it hurts.
What? No.
I'm sorry to break it to you.
No, I was prepared. As a teacher, I always prided myself that I kept at least up enough with the terms. I didn't use them, but when students used them, I knew what they were talking about. I'm serious. I've never heard this term before. And not only finding out on this for the first time that that's what this word means, or even what it sounds like, but also that it's a slam against millennials. This is a new feel. I'm not a fan of this at all. That stinks.
I hate to break it to you, Tony.
Oh, well, we better move on here on the Tony Kinnett Cast with Elise McCue. A little bit of that cultural connection. Well, Kamala Harris wants to recreate that magical moment with Mike Pence yet again, and has been pressuring the ABC news team who's hosting the upcoming debate on September 10th. Hey, why don't we have ourselves a little recreation? Make sure the mics are open, because they agreed to the mics being shut off when the other is speaking style of rules. And she's just been trying so hard to get the mics turned on. Do you think she's kind of angling for another, like, I am woman, hear me roar, be quiet, you stupid man kind of a moment?
Oh, definitely. You kidding me? I also think it
You think you just
Fell out of a coconut tree?
I thought that's where you were going.
I should have. You got me there. You were a little bit more Gen Z in the moment with that reference. But I definitely think that's what she's angling for. But I don't know if anyone's told her, but people make compilations of Trump's witty remarks between his speaking times.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton. Because the mic was on. So this, in my opinion, works out great for him. I don't know if anyone's told her that, but I don't know why she wants to do that.
Well, as of yesterday, ABC News has actually turned down the rule changes at this point, which is kind of unexpected. But they have now released a statement that they're gonna keep the mics off. So sorry to Mamala. I'm so sorry. We're just going to keep it going this way. So this makes me think that there's got to be some kind of a different way she's going to try to thread this in. So if she can't get the I'm speaking moment, because she can try to talk to him if he's talking when the mic's not off, and that's just going to look awkward because nobody's going to hear anything, and she's just going to stop and go, oh, hey, by the way, I'm speaking. And it's going to look like really awkward. I mean, I don't know. Do you think there's another way that she can work this in if the mics are muted in a way that, I don't know, is there another way to kind of accuse an individual of mansplaining or manterrupting or God knows what else?
I actually have zero idea. I haven't thought about this too much, but if I had to say something right at this moment, it would be that she would just refute every single thing that is said to her immediately when she starts. And then because she wasn't interrupting or saying things under her breath, it gives her more of a distinguished, composed look. That she
demure, you might say.
Oh, I don't like that one. The micro trends of lexicon for Gen Z.
I don't think that as we move through the debate, and of course we'll be doing live debate coverage, a pre-show and a post-show with the Daily Signal, kind of a big to-do. They're flying me into DC. We're getting a whole set built, all of this other nonsense. The question that I have is afterward, you get all of these pundits that swoop in, we will be some of them, that will get on all these panels and microanalyze every single facet of the debate. Oh man, did she do this? Did he do this? How amazing, how terrible, how whatever. Do you think that even if those moments don't happen, which is kind of what we're starting to see through a lot of Kamala interviews, is the big, extreme, exciting moments that they could always run on with Obama, the killer lines from Biden that they thought they'd have, like the Dark Brandon or whatever. We're not really getting those with Kamala. She's so airy. She's so basic in how she describes just emotions in the campaign that I don't know if there's going to be anything to latch on to. You have a much better way of reading how people are moving through their trains of thought. Do you think that after watching Kamala over the last couple of months, she might be reserving something for the debate?
I think thinking that she has something up her sleeve would be giving her too much credit. But also, you can never tell. And at the end of the day, no matter what she brings out or lack thereof, I don't think it matters, because you're going to hop onto that CNN post show, that MSNBC post show, and they're going to say, tonight I saw a woman who could really be president. And that's everybody's marching orders. Yes, she can be president, even though give us nothing, girl. I don't think it matters. And it's kind of, it feels like I feel defeated even before the debate has happened, but that's just how it's been going. And that's really what I think is the most important thing to look out for.
I think that really you have to look at the
Significance of the passage of time.
And the significance.
Doing it as one big team, understanding.
Leadership.
And all that's come before us.
Unburdened by what has been.
In coconut trees.
I got to say, I do hope that there is some basement dweller pundit that actually waddles out onto the air afterwards and does start with, tonight I saw a woman so that I can just cut the clip right there and just celebrate that this poor young chud has finally found a woman to look at. Good Lord.
And you know what? At least they can define what a woman is. At least that baseball pundit can define that.
Amazing how we have finally come around to that full circle. Well, that's enough mansplaining for today. So says the man. Elise McCue, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Tony. I'll see you.
We'll be back in just a second. Don't go anywhere. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, and first on 93 WIBC.
By now.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, now nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. If you haven't heard about all of the chaos regarding the Donald Trump abortion fiasco, that's probably because you're a normal person. You're busy going about the normal things that you're up to. There's a lot of chaos in the political world right now, though, because, as you know, on the right, there are a lot of pro-life conservatives. And pro-life conservatives are kind of unhappy with Trump's recent comments. So we're going to settle this. We're going to lay this matter to rest because we have all of the answers. And if you believe that, got a bridge to sell you. Joining me is Kristan Hawkins, President Students for Life. She's one of the greatest minds on the subject. And, quite honestly, one of the people who, when it comes to this matter, isn't afraid to get in the weeds and actually get your hands dirty and talk about this stuff. Kristan, thanks for coming on such short notice.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
So first of all, lay out for us why Amendment 4 in Florida is really gross, because objectively, it's a very gross piece of legislation proposal to amend Florida's constitution. Take it away.
Yeah, if passed, it will make Florida become California, Minnesota, Illinois on abortion. The amendment as worded says that it would nullify the Heartbeat Protection Act, which we fought for years to pass in Florida, which has stopped Florida from being an abortion tourism state from most of the country in Central and South America. It would nullify that. It would legalize abortion through 24 weeks, 6 months, and it would allow abortions in cases of health, a loose definition. So if a mother goes to a doctor and says, I'm sad about being pregnant, the doctor could use that to say she's having emotional distress, it's affecting her health, and literally use it to allow abortions up until the moment of birth and takes away parental notification.
And not just for doctors, right? Isn't this the amendment that allows individuals to go to any provider? So you could go to a Planned Parenthood who is very open and honest that they're willing to write any excuse, make up any kind of excuse possible to get you in and out.
Yep.
Again, like a cattle facility, as I've heard it described by a former employee.
Absolutely. And with chemical abortions, that's much more prevalent. In the past, we've heard things like, nurses trying to commit abortions in some states. But now with chemical abortion, she will be able to get the pills from anyone. Even a sex predator, a rapist, will be able to order chemical abortion pills and feed them to his victim. And continue to cover up his crime. I mean, this is abortion extremism. All of these abortion ballot referendums that you need to know, Tony, in all the states, they will make abortion legal in all trimesters up until the moment of birth.
Now, there are a lot of excellent pro-life organizations out there that track this. Of course, I know that Students for Life, a lot of other organizations that you work with do phenomenal work. I usually follow like Susan B. Anthony. There's a lot of excellent places to go to track this kind of stuff. This brings us to the controversy because, and we'll play the clip here in a moment, former President Donald Trump, when he was out on the campaign trail, was, I'm not going to say cornered, because you should get tough questions when you're on the presidential campaign trail. But he was asked by an interviewer.
You overturned, everyone does. I think
Roe,
does, yeah.
And you want abortion to be a states' rights issue. In Florida, the state that you are a resident of, there's an abortion-related amendment on the ballot to overturn the 6-week ban in Florida. How are you going to vote on that?
Well, I think the 6 week is too short. It has to be more time, and so and I've told them that I want more weeks.
So you'll vote in favor of the amendment?
I am going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks.
And this just, everyone lost it. And so a lot of the pro-life community, a lot of members who I'm even very close with, said, this is a complete betrayal of the pro-life movement. Oh, how could they? And might I say, a little bit of pearl-clutching. Like, judge, jury decided it was time to bring out the executioner. We're done. Maybe even threatened to hold the vote hostage. Kristan, I got to be honest with you. I think this is so silly. I want to hear your take on it, though. And please don't pull any punches. Tell me what your initial reaction was and maybe a little bit after.
Well, yeah, I mean, my initial reaction is anger and devastation for the lives that will be lost if he's elected, right? Because what he has signaled is that he is now a pro-choice candidate. Now, the campaign was very swift to come out immediately after that and said this is not a reflection on how he's voting on Amendment 4. He hasn't said that yet. But now we know for sure he supports abortions when babies have heartbeats. We also know for sure, based on many personal conversations that pro-life leaders have had with him, that he opposes abortion. We know at least in the late term. So he's somewhere in the middle. We don't know where. And I think a lot of folks have always assumed that he was 100% pro-life. I'm not one of those people. So I wasn't as like shocked as most people. I think what is shocking is that this is a stupid campaign strategy that he's undertaking, because there's no voter who's voting for more abortion who's going to then listen to his comment and be like, you're right, now I can vote for you. If you're voting for abortion, you're voting for Kamala Harris. And I think what this demonstrated is, in this election, we have Little Miss abortion up until the moment of birth, Kamala Harris. That's one side. And then you have Mr. I'm uncomfortable with abortion, I don't like it in some cases, Donald Trump. And that is now where we are at as pro-lifers when we have to consider who we're voting for.
So I agree that initially I was frustrated, but I wasn't frustrated because I felt betrayed. I feel like you mentioned, and with a lot of individuals, I was never really particularly in the idea that Trump was some kind of great moral crusader in favor of pro-life stuff. Trump is who he surrounds himself with. He's not necessarily the world's greatest political philosopher, especially in moral political philosophy. And so when you get into these conversations, it's like it's like when people ask Kamala Harris very deep questions about policy, or any of the last 5 individuals who have been president of the United States or the vice president, to consider deep moral philosophy. I think I can maybe list 2 vice presidents who really had a finger on that kind of a pulse. I just don't go to him for that kind of stuff. Number 2, I don't think that Trump necessarily knows any details about Amendment 4 at all, because he's thrown all of his weight behind running for the presidency. I mean, seriously, do we honestly believe that Trump goes home every day and looks at every single ballot measure that's up for, his state come election time? I don't think so. But here's my biggest takeaway on this entire situation. Trump has shown himself to be someone who can be reasoned with and convinced to go in a different direction. He's shown this as a businessman. He's shown this as an entertainer. He's shown this as a candidate and as president. He has changed his policies. He has changed where he comes from based on who he talks with. And so while I don't defend, him saying stupid things ever on any kind of policy prescription, he says things. He does. I just got to tell you, I don't take things that he's saying about this with a great amount of weight, because people who are kind of shocked, there's a little bit of shock to their anger. Like, are you really surprised? Like you said, people who were they believed in 100% extremely pro-life. And it's why'd you have him up on a pedestal?
I know. And there's still people in my comments. I posted a graphic today of the number of babies who will die if Kamala Harris is elected.
Right.
Number of
the
babies
harsh
who will
calculus,
die,
yeah.
The number of babies who will die if Trump is elected. And then there's this margin in between. And it's with my vote this November, I'm voting for this margin. And people are mad at me and we're like, Donald Trump is still he's pro-life. What are you doing saying babies are going to die? I'm like, well, first of all, he just came out yesterday and said he supports abortions when babies have heartbeats. So that's not a pro-life position. Second of all, even if he were a 100% pro-life politician and were reelected, the babies are still going to die because he hasn't signaled that he's going to stop and make all abortions illegal, because he's been saying abortion is a state's issue. But it's interesting. I'm getting it from both sides, people just unwilling to understand and listen to what he's saying. But you're also right. He speaks off the cuff. I don't think he fully thinks about a lot of things before he says them, which causes problems and confusion. I mean, he was cutesy last weekend when he said something like, my administration is going to be great for reproductive rights. And I was like, what? Are you just trying to redefine reproductive rights? What are you doing? So
I will bet, if you'll pardon the expression, I'll bet balls to bones that, honest to God, he's just trolling Kamala when he said that.
Yeah. Oh, probably. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's the thing. People are taking everything and of course, it's so seriously.
And we should be on our guard. This is the thing. I am not a shrill for the Republican Party. I worked for the Republican Party, but I'm not a Republican Party activist. I've spent 18 years of my life leading a human rights movement, and that's how I will die. I'm a human rights activist. My job is to be a pain in the ass of every politician, Republican or Democrat. That's my job. And so we're not going to stop our work. Yes, I'm still going to vote for Donald Trump, because at the end of the day, this isn't about tax policy. This isn't something that's just going to implement my bank account. More babies will die if Kamala Harris is elected. I morally cannot say I'm sitting this out. However, Does that mean I just sit back and accept this? No, we created a document at the end of June, right before the RNC, a new deal with the pro-life generation. And we have been asking President Trump and his campaign for months to sign onto this new deal. Everything in this new deal subscribes to his states' rights philosophy that he should do. If he really believes abortion should be a states' rights issue, then he needs to put our federal taxpayer money where his mouth is and get us out of funding Planned Parenthood. He needs to stop what's happening. Today, the Supreme Court may be issuing an emergency decision on a lawsuit pertaining to Tennessee and Oklahoma. Tennessee and Oklahoma, pro-life states, have moved quickly after Roe was reversed to end abortion. The Biden-Harris administration is so pro-abortion. Their HHS is withholding Title X money for contraception to Tennessee and Oklahoma because those states refuse to refer women in their state to the Biden-Harris abortion hotline. Let me just reiterate this. They're so pro-abortion, they're not sending taxpayer money for contraception into these states. Donald Trump should talk about that, because they are weaponizing the federal government against pro-life states. So there's so much he could do as a president, even being pro-choice, even my deep disagreements with him about abortion. There's a lot we can work with him to do. And that's what he needs to be talking about, that and Kamala's late-term abortion extremism. And so I'm not giving up. I'm not, just stumping for the Trump campaign. I'm the biggest pain in their butt. And I hope I am until the end of the election, and if he wins after that. But we also have to be pragmatic when we're voting, because I'm not voting for a priest. I'm not voting for a pastor. I'm voting for a flawed politician. And my vote has the power to save some lives. Not all lives, but some lives. And I take that very, very seriously.
And to close things off, because we're very much out of time, I think that the real time to have some of these deep conversations on this kind of a subject is during the primary season. And I remember that there were a lot of individuals who were, when I mean hardliner pro-lifers, I mean single issue pro-life voters that were so
I was one of them.
Aggressively single issue that they still threw their weight behind Trump. And they said, well, Trump's, our guy and things like that. And it's okay. Now he's won the primary. So now it's a binary choice. People like to pretend it's not. It is. And that kind of calculus, while not fun, in which administration are more children going to die under, it's necessary. I think you're right on the money there. Kristan Hawkins, Students for Life, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. We'll be back in just a second. Don't go anywhere. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal and 93 at WIBC.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. We are running just a bit short on today's show around on our radio station, so we're going to dig right into a little bit of mail time after an important news update. Since we basically got the show written today, I actually ended up getting a quick update. Former President Donald Trump has actually since been briefed on Amendment 4 and has now come out against it particularly.
Voting yes or no on Amendment 4 in Florida.
So I think 6 weeks, you need more time than 6 weeks. I've disagreed with that right from the early primaries. When I heard about it, I disagreed with it. At the same time, the Democrats are radical because the 9 months is just a ridiculous situation where you can do an abortion in the 9th month. And, you know, some of the states like Minnesota and other states have it where you could actually execute the baby after birth. And all of that stuff is unacceptable. So I'll be voting no for that reason.
So very interesting update there. We'll continue to keep you guys up to date on that. That brings us to just one question this week for a little bit of mail time. Mail time. Mail time. All right. For just a little bit of mail time this particular week, we have got a really interesting question from Sharon. Do I think that Harris and Walz will actually walk back their original comments about sort of supporting Israel, sort of disarming Israel, sort of supporting the Palestinian stuff? Where do I think that's going to go? I think that at this point in time, Harris and Walz are going to desperately try to thread the needle. It's not really advisable because Trump will hit her on it eventually. She's trying to play kind of a tough game in supporting Israel, but she's also been the most vocal person in the Biden administration about supporting Hamas supporting factions. So specifically, she has a lot of campaign officials that are going to places like Dearborn, Michigan, and meeting with like Students for Justice in Palestine and groups like that are very friendly to those pro-Shia groups. The unfortunate thing for her is a lot of those pro-Shia groups despise her. And I was actually among them while I was at the Democratic National Convention. I was actually out in those riots. So the moral of the story in this particular case is that I don't necessarily believe that Harris will walk things back enough to make a sizable difference, but I do think she's going to try to cling to Israel because Pennsylvania at this point, far more important for her than Michigan. She thinks she has Michigan. I'm not really sure she does, but she definitely does not have Pennsylvania at this point. And Pennsylvania is infinitely more pro-Israel than Michigan is. We'll be back next week with some fun updates and another mess. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal and 93 WIBC. Take care.